The date is going perfectly. She's laughing, leaning in, asking you questions. You can feel the attraction building, that electric energy between two people when chemistry is real. And then you do it. You say the thing that kills it instantly. You talk about how successful you are. You mention the promotion, the impressive project, the recognition you got. You're not bragging, you're just sharing, right? But her energy shifts. She's still smiling, still nodding, but the attraction that was there 30 seconds ago has vanished, like someone flipped a switch. You have no idea what just happened. You thought showing your value would make her more interested. You thought demonstrating your success would increase attraction. And you're confused why the opposite occurred, why the moment you tried to impress her was the exact moment you lost her. This happens to smart, accomplished, genuinely good people every day. They go on dates, they feel chemistry building, and then they unconsciously activate the attraction killer that lives inside everyone, the ego. And the ego, despite believing it's helping you win, is actually the reason you keep losing. We've been taught that attraction is about demonstrating value. Show her you're successful, accomplished, interesting, impressive. Prove that you're worth choosing. Display your achievements, your status, your superiority over other options. Make yourself look good, and she will want you. This advice sounds logical. It makes intuitive sense. And it's how every dating coach, every self-help book, every cultural message about attraction has trained you to think. Demonstrate value. Create attraction. The better you look, the more she'll want you. But that framework is backwards. And following it is why you're sabotaging every connection before it even starts. Because attraction isn't created when your ego is activated. It's destroyed. And every time you try to demonstrate your value, you're actually broadcasting the one thing that kills attraction faster than anything else. Insecurity disguised as confidence. Your ego is the part of your psyche designed to protect your sense of worth by proving you're valuable, important, better than, worthy of recognition. It's the voice that says, tell her about your accomplishments so she sees you're impressive. It's the impulse to one-up stories, correct details, establish your expertise, defend your image. And here's what your ego doesn't understand. Every move it makes to demonstrate value actually communicates the opposite, because secure, genuinely confident people don't need to demonstrate anything. They exist comfortably without requiring external validation of their worth. And that comfort, that lack of need, is what creates attraction. Sarah went on a date with 2 different men in the same week. First guy was objectively more successful, better job, more money, impressive background. But he spent the entire date making sure she knew it. Every story somehow circled back to his achievements, his intelligence, his status. She left feeling exhausted and uninterested.
Second guy was less accomplished on paper, but he never mentioned it. He asked questions, listened genuinely, shared stories that were about experiences rather than achievements. He laughed at himself, admitted when he didn't know something, and treated the conversation like connection rather than resume presentation. Sarah felt drawn to him immediately, and she couldn't explain why. What she was responding to wasn't objective value. It was the presence or absence of ego. The first guy's ego was screaming, "I need you to see how valuable I am," which made her feel like he was selling himself, which made her instinctively pull away. The second guy's ego was quiet, which made her feel like he was genuinely present, which made attraction possible. This is the ego paradox. The more you try to demonstrate your value, the more you communicate that you're uncertain of it. And uncertainty of your own worth is the opposite of the confidence that creates attraction. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It exists quietly, and doesn't require acknowledgement. But here's where it gets complicated. Your ego is convinced it's protecting you. Every time it pushes you to mention your achievements, correct someone's misconception, establish your expertise, defend your image, it believes it's preventing you from being seen as less valuable than you are. It's trying to control how you're perceived, and control is exactly what kills attraction, because attraction is a feeling that emerges in the space between two people when both are comfortable with uncertainty, with not knowing, with being seen without armor. Attraction requires vulnerability, and your ego's entire job is to prevent vulnerability. Michael had this realization on a third date when he caught himself about to tell a story designed to make him look good. He stopped mid-sentence and admitted, "I was about to tell you a story to impress you, and I don't actually know why I need to do that." The woman across from him smiled and said, "That's the most attractive thing you've said all night." Because in that moment, his ego dropped. He stopped performing, stopped trying to control her perception, stopped needing to demonstrate value. He was just honest about what he was doing and why. And that honesty, that willingness to be seen without the armor, created more attraction than any impressive story ever could. This is the vulnerability that your ego is desperately trying to protect you from. Being seen as you actually are, without the achievements and status and impressive details that you think make you worthy. Your ego believes that without those demonstrations of value, you'll be rejected. But the opposite is true. Attraction dies when someone feels like they're being sold to. And every time your ego activates to demonstrate your value, you're treating the interaction like a transaction where you need to prove you're worth choosing. The other person feels this immediately, even if they can't articulate it, and they instinctively pull away. Rachel could always tell within 5 minutes of a date whether the guy's ego was running the show. It wasn't about what he said, it was about the energy underneath the words. Was he trying to impress her, or was he genuinely interested in the conversation? Was he performing, being interesting, or was he actually present?
And here's what she learned. The guys who were trying to impress her were always the ones she felt nothing for, because their attention wasn't actually on her. It was on managing her perception of them. They weren't connecting, they were controlling. And you can't feel attracted to someone who's more focused on your opinion of them than on actually knowing you. This is the attention redirect. When your ego is active, your attention moves from the person in front of you to the image you're trying to project. You're no longer present in the conversation. You're in your head, calculating how you're being perceived, planning what impressive thing to say next, defending against possible judgments. And the other person feels your absence. They're sitting across from someone who appears to be there, but is actually elsewhere, performing rather than being. And there's no attraction in performance. Attraction requires presence, and your ego makes presence impossible because it needs you focused on image management. So what does this actually look like in real time? You're on a date. The conversation flows to career. Your ego's impulse is to make sure your career sounds impressive. So you emphasize the important parts, maybe slightly exaggerate the responsibilities, present the most flattering version of your professional life. You think you're creating attraction by demonstrating success. But what you're actually doing is leaving the conversation. You're no longer talking about your actual experience of your work, the challenges, the boring parts, the things you're figuring out, the ways it does or does not align with who you are. You're presenting a resume designed to impress. And the moment you start presenting instead of sharing, the moment you prioritize looking good over being real, attraction evaporates. Because the other person isn't meeting you anymore. They're meeting your ego's carefully managed image of you. And nobody's attracted to a performance. James was a doctor, which usually impressed people. But he noticed dates always lost energy when his career came up. He eventually realized why. He was so worried about people seeing him as arrogant or privileged that he'd over-explain how hard he worked, how much he sacrificed, how deserving he was of the position. His ego was defending against a judgment he assumed was happening. But that defense, that need to control how his career was perceived, made him exhausting to talk to. He wasn't sharing his actual experience of being a doctor. He was managing her perception of doctors. And she could feel the difference between someone being real and someone being defensive. This is the defense mechanism that your ego runs constantly, preemptively defending against judgments you imagine people are making. But every defense communicates insecurity about the thing you're defending. Secure people don't defend. They exist comfortably with however they're perceived. And here's what changes everything. Attraction isn't created by being impressive. Attraction is created by being comfortable in your own skin without needing to be impressive. It's the absence of need that draws people in, not the presence of impressive qualities.
Think about the most attractive person you've ever met. Not the most beautiful or successful, but the person you felt most drawn to. What made them magnetic wasn't their achievements. It was something about their energy. They were comfortable, present, not trying to prove anything, just existing without armor, without performance, without need. That's what your ego is preventing. Every time it activates to demonstrate value, establish expertise, defend your image, or control perception, it's creating the energetic neediness that repels attraction. Because neediness isn't about what you want from someone, it's about what you need from their perception of you. Emma went on a date with a guy who admitted he was terrible at his hobby, laughed at his own mistakes, shared a story where he looked foolish, and asked her opinion on something he genuinely didn't know. She found him incredibly attractive, and she realized later it was because his ego was completely absent. He didn't need to look good. He was comfortable being imperfect. And that comfort, that lack of defensiveness around imperfection, created space for her to relax too. She didn't have to manage his ego by being impressed. She didn't have to watch him perform being valuable. She could just be there with someone who was being real. And that realness was magnetic. This is what most people miss. Your ego thinks it's making you more attractive by highlighting your best qualities. But attraction isn't about your best qualities. It's about your realness. And realness requires dropping the need to be seen a certain way, which is exactly what your ego exists to prevent. So, how do you actually do this? How do you stop your ego from destroying attraction when it's been running automatically your entire life, convinced it's protecting you from rejection by making you look good? You start noticing when it activates, when you feel the impulse to mention an achievement, correct a detail, establish your expertise, defend your image, one-up a story, or prove you're valuable. That's your ego. And in that moment, you have a choice. Follow the impulse or do literally anything else. Marcus started practicing this by doing the opposite of what his ego wanted. When his ego said, "Tell her about the promotion," he asked her a question instead. When his ego said, "Correct that misconception," he let it go. When his ego said, "Make yourself look good here," he shared something real instead, even if it wasn't impressive. And he noticed something extraordinary. The less he tried to demonstrate his value, the more attracted women seemed to be. By dropping the performance and just being honest about his actual experience, including the boring parts, the uncertain parts, the parts that didn't make him impressive, he became magnetic in a way he never was when trying to be impressive. Because here's the truth your ego doesn't want you to know. People aren't attracted to impressive. They're attracted to real. And the more energy you spend trying to look impressive, the less real you become. You trade authenticity for image, and you wonder why nobody feels anything for the image you're working so hard to maintain.
But letting go of the ego's protection feels terrifying because your ego has convinced you that without the impressive details, the achievements, the demonstrations of value, you won't be enough, that people will see the real you and find you lacking, that your actual self isn't worthy of attraction and needs the ego's armor to be acceptable. That belief is the lie that's destroying your dating life, because the real you, the one underneath the performance, the one your ego is hiding, is the only version of you that anyone can actually be attracted to. The performed version might get interest, but it will never create genuine connection or lasting attraction. Sophie finally understood this after years of dating failures. She'd been playing a version of herself designed to be attractive, smart but not threatening, accomplished but not intimidating, independent but not unavailable. Every date was a performance of this carefully calibrated character, and nobody ever felt anything real for her. When she finally dropped the performance and just showed up as herself, including the parts that weren't carefully calibrated for maximum attractiveness, something shifted. Some people weren't interested, which hurt, but the people who were interested were actually interested in her, not in the character she'd been performing. And that interest felt completely different. This is the freedom that comes from killing your ego in dating. You stop trying to be attractive and start being yourself. And yes, that means some people won't be attracted, but the ones who are will be attracted to something real, something that can actually turn into connection, rather than to a performance that requires constant maintenance. Your ego will fight this. It will tell you that being real is too risky, that dropping the performance will lead to rejection, that you need to demonstrate value to create attraction. It will push you to mention the achievement, correct the detail, defend the image, control the perception. And every time you listen to it, you'll sabotage another potential connection, because attraction can't exist in the space your ego creates. That defended, performed, carefully managed space where you're more focused on being impressive than on being present. The outway is simple, but not easy. Notice when your ego activates. Recognize what it's trying to protect you from, and choose presence
over performance. Choose being real over looking good. Choose connection over control. Choose the vulnerability of being seen as you are over the safety of being seen as you want to be. And here's what will happen. Some people won't be interested. Your ego was right about that. But the people who are interested will be interested in you, not in the performed version of you. And that interest, that attraction to your actual self, is the only thing that ever turns into something real. Because at the end of every date, every conversation, every moment of connection, you have a choice. You can activate your ego and destroy the attraction by trying to demonstrate your value. Or you can drop the armor and create attraction by being comfortable enough in your own worth that you don't need to prove anything. One path leads to performance and eventual disconnection. The other leads to presence and possible connection. Your ego will always choose the first path, because it believes proving your value keeps you safe from rejection. But the only thing that's actually keeping you safe is also keeping you alone. That armor you think makes you attractive is the exact thing preventing anyone from feeling anything real for you. So the question isn't whether you'll be rejected if you drop the ego's protection. The question is whether you want to keep being chosen for someone you're not, or risk being rejected for who you actually are. Because the second option is the only one that leads anywhere worth going.